in listen-only mode.
Hi everybody, and welcome to the In Control webinar. Hopefully everybody can see the screen there. So this webinar is about the UK benefits welfare system. Next slide, Gaynor. So this is the 7th webinar as part of a series of webinars that we've been doing over the recent month. For those of you that have been on the webinar before, this is how you participate. So for those that don't know this, you'll see a little box that you've got at the side of your screen. And after Bez and Richard have done their presentation, you'll have the opportunity to ask questions either during or after. So after the presentation, you can raise your little hand. You can see that little hand icon. And on an iPad, there's also a little hand up written verbally that you can use. And what I can do then is I can unmute you so that you can verbally ask the question at the end of the presentation. But during it, if you've got questions that you just want to start logging, there's this question box as well. And the question box, you can type in questions, and I'll start picking themes up as we go along and start asking those questions, or if I can respond to them as we're going, I'll do that. And if you've also got any questions about your sound or how you're doing, by all means, just use that question box and we'll be able to pick it up. We'll be monitoring that throughout the webinar this morning. Next slide. Okay, so this webinar is focused on the recent changes to the UK benefit welfare system, to universal credit, statutory sick pay, personal independent payments, and what further help might be available. I'm really pleased to welcome Richard Conway and Bez Ellie, both from Disability Law Service. They'll introduce themselves as a handover. So thank you very much, Richard and Bez, and I will now hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. So again, my name is Richard Conway and I am a volunteer at the Disability Law Service. And today's presentation will be in regards to the changes to welfare benefits in regards to the coronavirus crisis 2020. So a brief introduction. Due to the international outbreak of coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic in the UK, emergency protective changes have been made by the UK government to the welfare benefit system. This presentation has been designed to point out these relevant changes regarding COVID-19 and to help inform the general public of what help with welfare benefits may now be available to those affected in this current crisis. So beginning with universal credit. Many new changes have been made to universal credit in order to protect current claimants and to make this benefit more accessible to all new claimants. If you have made a new claim for universal credit but do not have a date for an assessment appointment, you do not need to do anything. You will be contacted shortly by telephone or by letter to let you know what will happen next. Claims will start the day of an application was submitted online. This will not be reliant upon your identity being verified online. The DWP will never text or email you asking for your personal information or bank details. So it's very important that you remember that, okay? The DWP will contact you by telephone or letter only, okay? The standard allowance for universal credit has been increased by £20 a week. This will apply for 1 year from the 6th of April 2020. Work search and work availability requirements have been suspended for at least 3 months from the 30th of March 2020. So you will not be expected to look for work or be available for work for this period. New applicants for universal credit will not be required to supply a fit note for a limited capability for work. A claimant can obtain an isolation note via NHS 111 if needed. very important, you should not attend the job centre unless you are directed to do so for an exceptional purpose. Next slide, please. So in regards to universal credit and advances, new claimants for universal credit can request an advance of up to 100% of their estimated first payment. Advances can be requested as soon as a new claim has been accepted, usually granted within 5 days of request, can be granted sooner in certain circumstances. So it's worth asking for that to be granted as soon as possible, okay? You can also get an advance if you are already being paid universal credit and have told universal credit of a change in your circumstances. That means that you will be paid more universal credit, but have not yet been paid the increased amount. Advances must usually be repaid within 12 months. This will change soon on the 24th of October, 2021. It says 2020 on the slides, but it's actually 2021. You can ask for your repayments to be delayed for up to 3 months if you can't afford them. This will only be allowed in exceptional circumstances. Beginning on the 24th of March 2020 and continuing for the next 3 months, there will be no new reviews or reassessments for benefits requiring medical assessments. This includes universal credit. Face-to-face medical assessments have also been suspended for 3 months from the 17th of March 2020. If you have already received a UC50 form for reassessment before this date, you will need to complete it and return it as soon as possible. Please contact Universal Credit to request extra time if you are struggling to complete your forms. You will still need to inform Universal Credit if your health conditions change. It's very important that you continue to meet this duty. For self-employed, Universal Credit has temporarily changed to enable self-employed people to access more financial support. From the 6th of April 2020, the requirements for the minimum income floor will be temporarily relaxed. This change will apply to all Universal Credit claimants and will last for the duration of the outbreak. This means that your Universal Credit award will be based on your actual income, even if this is below the minimum wage, times the number of hours you are expected to work. For the Universal Credit housing element, the government has increased the local housing allowance rates for Universal Credit housing element to pay for at least 30% of the market rent in each area from April 2020. So you can find the table for the local housing allowance rate. And if anybody wants to get hold of that, they can get in contact with the Disability Law Service. Okay, next slide. Okay, so this is statutory sick pay. For many workers who are incapacitated due to having symptoms or having isolated because of a family member potentially being infected by COVID-19, statutory sick pay will be their first port of call. For employees, PAYE under a contract, if you have become incapacitated or you are having to self-isolate due to COVID-19, you can now access statutory sick pay from the first day of your incapacity rather from the 4th day of your incapacity. This new change will be effective retrospectively from the 13th of March 2020. From the 16th of April 2020, as a result of the COVID-19 outbreak, those who will be deemed incapable of work by reason of coronavirus will include a person who is identified in public health guidance as extremely vulnerable and at very high risk of severe illness from coronavirus because of an underlying health condition, and has been advised by notification sent to in respect of that person in accordance with the guidance to follow rigorously shielding measures for the period specified in the notification. Okay. Statutory sick pay is now paid at a rate of £95.85p a week. This is a new recent change and it can be paid up to 28 weeks. You will need to report your conditions to your employer immediately. To be entitled to statutory sick pay, you must be classed as an employee, a person under an employment contract, or earning an average of £120 per week. This is a recent change. Self-employed and statutory sick pay. If you are not eligible for statutory sick pay, for example, if you are self-employed or earning below the lower earnings limit of £120 per week, and you have COVID or are being advised to self-isolate because of COVID, it has now been made easier to make a claim for universal credit or new style employment and support allowance. We've already discussed universal credit above, and we will go on to discuss the new style employment and support allowance. So evidence that you will need to supply for statutory sick pay. If you need to supply your employer with evidence of symptoms, or you are having to isolate because someone you live with has symptoms, you can obtain an isolation note from NHS 111. All these measures will apply retrospectively from the 13th of March 2020. So now we move on to new style employment and support allowance. For those who are incapacitated due to COVID-19 and are not eligible for statutory sick pay, new style employment and support allowance may be available to a claimant from the first day of incapacity instead of from the 8th day. New style employment and support allowance is a contribution-based income-related benefit. So an applicant's savings and capital and or a partner's savings, capitals and incomes will not affect their eligibility. Claimants will need to have paid enough national insurance contributions over the last full tax years to be entitled to new style employment and support allowance. You can now apply for new style employment and support allowance online. It's very important that you recognise this, okay? As a result of the COVID-19 crisis, new style employment and support allowance can now be claimed where a person or their child thinks they have coronavirus or is recovering from it. A person or their child is self-isolating because they came into contact with someone who might have coronavirus. A person has been told to stay at home for at least 12 weeks by the NHS because they are at high risk of severe illness. When applying online, you will need to supply your national insurance number, your bank and building society account number and sort code. You can use a friend or family's member account if you do not have one, your doctor's name, address and telephone number, details of your income if you were working, and the date your statutory sick pay ends if you are claiming it. If you are an appointee applying on behalf of someone else, you must apply by telephone. You mustn't apply online. Okay, it's very important that you recognise that. So for new applicants, you cannot get new style employment and support allowance if you are getting statutory sick pay from an employer, but you can apply for new style employment and support allowance up to 3 months before your statutory sick pay ends. If you are already getting universal credit and will now need to stop working due to illness or disablement or because of COVID-19, you can contact your work coach or case manager about applying for new style employment and support allowance. You can do this by signing into your UC online account. You will not need to have another work capability assessment. Please bear in mind that in this instance, that new style employment and allowance will be deducted £1 for £1 from your universal credit. Existing claimants, if you have already made a claim for new style employment support allowance, you do not have a date for an assessment appointment. You do not need to do anything. You will be contacted shortly by telephone or letter to let you know what will happen next. If you already have an assessment appointment arranged, you do not need to attend. Your assessment provider will contact you to discuss your appointment and explain the next steps for you. again with existing claimants, if claimants for New Style Employment Support Allowance tell the DWP in good time that they are needing to stay at home or that they have been diagnosed with COVID-19, claimants will continue to be treated as having a limited capability for work. Beginning on the 24th of March 2020 and continuing for the next 3 months, there will be no new reviews or reassessments for employment and support allowance or New Style Employment and Support Allowance. Face-to-face assessments have also been suspended for the next 3 months. You will still need to report relevant changes to your health conditions. If you have already received an ESA 50 form for reassessment for this date, you should complete it and return it as soon as possible. You can contact ESA to request extra time if you are struggling to complete your forms. Next slide, please. So moving on now to New Style Job Seekers and Allowance.
So am I okay? Oh, okay.
Okay, sorry. At this stage, we will now be handing over to my colleague, Bez. Thank you, Bez.
No problem, cheers. Thanks, Richard. So I'll be talking about New Style Job Seekers Allowance and some other benefits. And yeah, my name is Bez Ely, and I've been at the Disability Law Service since July 2019. So if you've lost your job as a result of coronavirus and you're not eligible for any income-related benefits such as universal credit, you might be able to claim New Style Job Seekers Allowance. This is paid for a maximum of 6 months and you can apply online. You will need to have worked as an employee for the last 2 complete tax years and paid enough Class 1 national insurance contributions. Unfortunately, if you're self-employed and have only paid Class 2 national insurance contributions, you won't be eligible for New Style Job Seekers Allowance. So similar to universal credit, work search and work availability requirements have been suspended for at least 3 months from the 30th of March 2020. So you will not be expected to look for work or be available for work during this period if you're claiming New Style Job Seekers Allowance. You should, however, still inform your work coach if you do have coronavirus or you're self-isolating. So now I'm just going to talk a bit about working tax credit. So similar to universal credit, the basic element of working tax credit has been increased by £20 a week or £1,045 a year from the 6th of April 2020 until the 5th of April 2021. HMRC has told claimants not to update their working hours if they're working less due to the coronavirus. It's treating this as a temporary exceptional change and has said working tax credit will not go down because you're working less. HMRC has also said you'll still be treated as in work for at least 8 weeks if you've temporarily stopped working or your hours have temporarily reduced. If you've lost your job, your working tax credit will continue for 4 weeks and will then stop unless you found a job within that 4-week period. You can continue to be entitled to working tax credit when you're sick in the following circumstances. So if you're getting statutory sick pay as an employee, or if you're self-employed and you would otherwise have qualified for statutory sick pay, or if you're getting employment and support allowance, or if you're getting credits on your national insurance record for limited capability for work. So that might be if you've made a claim for employment and support allowance, but you're not entitled because of your national insurance record. And these periods must start immediately after working and they can continue for a maximum of 28 weeks. So next I'm going to talk about personal independence payment. So you can continue to claim personal independence payment as normal, so putting in new claims. However, face-to-face medical assessments have been suspended for 3 months from the 17th of March 2020. If you've already had a face-to-face assessment, then that will continue to be processed. If you've got an assessment appointment arranged and it's a face-to-face one, you will not need to attend. Your assessment provider should contact you to discuss your appointment and alternative arrangements. So this might be a telephone assessment or a paper-based assessment. So as with universal credit and employment and support allowance, reviews and reassessments for personal independence payment will be suspended for at least 3 months from the 24th of March 2020, but you will still need to report relevant changes to your health condition, especially if that means you might be entitled to more personal independence payment. And if you've received a PIP renewal or reassessment form before the 24th of March 2020, you will need to complete it and return it as soon as possible. You can contact PIP to request extra time if you're struggling to complete your forms. The DWP has recently said that they'll extend all PIP awards that are coming to an end by 6 months without you being asked to take any action. If your award is ending soon and you haven't been notified in writing that it will be extended, it is sensible to get advice by contacting PIP, because your award will stop automatically unless a decision is made to extend it before it ends. If your award is not going to be extended and you want to keep getting PIP, you would need to make a new claim. And it's important to make a new claim in good time, because unless your claim is decided before your award ends, your benefit would stop. So just quickly on other disability benefits. So the same changes that are happening with PIP regarding reviews and reassessments will also apply for disability living allowance, attendance allowance, and industrial injuries disablement benefit. And so now just going to talk a little bit about benefit tribunals and appeals. So face-to-face hearings are currently being avoided. Instead, you may be offered a telephone hearing, or a decision may be made on the papers. A judge might also make directions for further evidence. If your case is urgent because you're suffering financial hardship, you should email or call the tribunal to ask for your appeal to be expedited. You should explain the difficulties you're having because of the lack of income during the COVID-19 crisis. And now talking about changes to carers allowance. So a break in caring can be ignored if it's caused by either the disabled person or their carer having coronavirus symptoms or having to isolate because of coronavirus. So they can still be treated as entitled to carers allowance during those periods. And you can claim carers allowance even if you're providing care remotely during the coronavirus outbreak. So this might include giving emotional support over the phone or online, but you will still need to be providing care for at least 35 hours a week to that person. And now just talking about housing benefit changes. So the same as universal credit housing element, local housing allowance rates have been increased to allow private tenants who are claiming housing benefit to access at least 30% of market rents in their area from April 2020. And just a couple of changes to council tax reduction. So local authorities in England have been given extra funding from the government to help people getting working age local council tax support with reducing their council tax bill. So the government guidance states that the government's expectation is that councils will provide everyone getting working age local council tax support with a further reduction in their annual council tax bill of up to £150 in the financial year 2020 to 21. So it would be the whole £150 if that would then keep reducing their council tax bill, or if they don't need as much of that to pay no council tax, then it might be a bit less. And now talking about free school meals and food banks. So although schools are closed to most children because of coronavirus, schools can continue to provide free school meals either for collection or delivery. But where this is not possible, The scheme allows schools to provide vouchers to families electronically or as a gift card for those without internet access. Every eligible child can get a weekly shopping voucher worth £15. The vouchers can be spent on food at a range of shops, including Sainsbury's, Tesco, Asda, Morrison's, Waitrose and M&S, with the department working to get more shops to join the scheme as soon as possible. And in terms of food banks, the Trussell Trust is working with various partners to monitor the situation and continue to offer support. If the referral agency that a food bank has told you to contact is shut, you can contact the food bank directly for advice on what to do next. They may have emergency food boxes with partner organisations in the area, or they may know of other referral partners that are open or running a telephone service. For example, many citizens advise staff are working at home or on an appointment-only basis. Then you can find the details of your local Trussell Trust food bank on their website. So if you want further information on coronavirus changes, Ask CPAG has useful resources on how benefits are affected by the coronavirus. So you can find that at askcpag.org.uk. And if you want to find out what income-based benefits you might be entitled to before you apply, you can use a benefits calculator, such as the ones linked to on the gov.uk website. And finally, you can find all the information contained in this presentation on the Disability Law Service website by following the web address on the screen now and looking for Coronavirus Benefits Update. And the help sheet includes a bibliography of citations to all the relevant government legislation and help pages. So thank you very much for listening, and we've now got some time for some questions.
That's great. Thank you so much, Bez and Richard. So for all the attendees now, you've got that little hand button that you can use, and I'll keep my eye on that to unmute you. There's some questions that have come via email and on the question box. So if we start with them as people want to put their hands up. So one that came in from an email said, we have a mix of means-tested benefits and non-means-tested benefits. If we're transferred to universal credit, would we lose money?
Do you want to go with that, Beth?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that. So the question was, if people have got a mixture of means-tested and non-means-tested benefits, will they lose those if they go on to universal credit? Is that the question?
Yeah, or would they lose money overall if they went on to universal credit?
So the answer is it will depend on their individual situation. So some people will be better off and some people will be worse off. So it's hard, unless it's sort of more specific, it will be hard to say. In terms of contribution-based benefits, such as Jobseekers allowance or employment and support allowance, if it's contribution-based, you can get those at the same time as universal credit. So if you're entitled to universal credit, it would just top those up. But you do have to bear in mind that if you claim universal credit, it will stop any legacy benefits you're getting. So that could include child tax credit, working tax credit, housing benefit, income-based employment and support allowance, or income-based job seekers allowance, or income support. So it's always worth seeking advice from a benefits advisor before claiming universal credit if you are getting any of those old benefits.
Lovely, thank you. And then there's a couple of questions that came through regarding the £20 increase.
Yeah.
So one was, will the £20 increase also be applicable to ESA? And the other one is the £20 a week increase being applied to all welfare benefits, such as tax credits? And are those calculations being adjusted to the benefit calculators to disregard the additional income?
Do you want me to take that, Richard? Or?
Yeah, go ahead, Bez. Yeah.
Yeah. So currently it is just universal credit standard allowance and the working tax credit that are being increased by £20 a week. However, I think yesterday a campaign was launched by the Disability Benefits Consortium to increase all benefits by £20 a week. And so, as I say, but at the moment it's just universal credit and working tax credit. In terms of benefit calculators, I assume that whoever's in charge of each benefit calculator will be looking at increasing them, but I'm not sure of the current situation. I know that I think the one for benefit advisors, QBC, I think that one's been updated.
Thank you. Okay, should we take some from people who are attended? So Mons and Mia, if you're there, I'm going to unmute you now to be able to ask your question.
Good morning.
Good morning, Monza.
I am Monza Mia. My question, as I am self-isolating, I have not to go out. My mobility is building up to effective. It takes my savings over the allowed amount will be penalized for this, so will any exception be made? Thank God.
Thanks, Monza. So Monza uses a communicator, so he's saying that because he's not going out, his money's building up, and that might knock him over the savings allowance. And would he be penalised for that?
Yes, go, Richard.
Bez can correct me if I'm wrong on this. From my understanding, the savings will always generally be seen as savings. So whether that be benefits or whether it be from income, it will be disregarded for the first 52 weeks. But if you do go over the 6,000, it will be looked at as savings. Is that correct?
Yeah, so for income-based benefits, which includes income-based job seekers allowance, housing benefit, employment support allowance for income-based, and universal credit, you can still get benefits if you have savings below 16,000. But if it's below if it's between 6 and 16,000, there will be deductions from your benefit. And if it's just from not spending money, then it's still going to be treated as savings. There are certain types of money which can be disregarded, but if it's just accumulation of money, then as far as I know, the government's not said anything about that being disregarded because of coronavirus.
Yeah, so in my understanding, it will be lump sums or arrears. So underpayments can be disregarded for the term of your claim. But in regards to if you're building up your savings of your disability benefits, then they will be disregarded for the first 52 weeks, but after that they will be taken into account as savings.
Yeah, I think the 52 weeks is for benefit overpayments, and but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Emma Chadwick. Hi, Emma.
Hi, I didn't actually have a question. I'm sorry. I pressed the raise hand because I didn't have audio and it's back on. I do apologise.
All right. Okay. Thanks, Emma. So we'll move down to Jane. Hi, Jane.
Hi. Good morning.
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 Hello. Can you tell me, do you know how carers allowance is going to treat the self-employed income grant when they start to get it in June? So, for instance, I've got a client that's self-employed, not working, and is hoping to get the grant paid, but she's had to make a carers allowance claim in the meantime. So, any ideas how the back date of that will be treated by carers allowance?
That's a very niche question. Do you have the answer to that, Bez?
So I don't think the government's put any guidance on it. For universal credit, they've said that they won't treat it as backdated. So if you're claiming universal credit now until you get your grant, they're not going to retrospectively treat you as having got that money earlier. But obviously, once you get it, that will be treated as income. So you probably wouldn't be entitled to universal credit depending on how high your income is in that month. So they could apply the same to carers allowance. That would make sense. Technically, if the money hasn't come in until that month, then hopefully they would be able to have got it for the period up before that. But I can't guarantee that because the government hasn't specifically said it. But that would be consistent with what they've said for universal credit.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jane. Okay, we'll carry on with some of the verbal ones. So Tracy. Hi, Tracy. Tracy, you're self-muted. So if you want to try and unmute yourself as well on the panel.
Oh yeah, sorry, I've got it now.
There you go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi,
My
Tracy.
question is, my statutory sick pay was my last payment from the employer was paid in March. So I was on the universal credit books. I've only had one payment from them, which was in October. So I'm still on the books. Should I be on universal credit or should I be on the new style employment support allowance? Should I be going on to that? And my other question is, the universal credit have looked at what I got on the 15th of March. They looked at it in April and they've only allowed me £62 between now and the 21st of May. Is there anything else I can claim? Because I literally have nothing.
Very sorry to hear that, Tracy. So yeah, from my understanding, if you've worked in the last 2 years and paid sufficient national insurance contributions, you would be able to now apply for a new style employment and support allowance as your statutory sick pay has ended. Okay. Have you been receiving any working tax credits?
No, nothing. No, the only thing I've had apart from my sick pay since I got ill, my employers didn't pay me 1 month sick in October, so I got universal credit for that 1 month. Other than that, I've been on my statutory sick pay from my employer. Okay, so I don't know if you were listening to the slides above, but you can go back and have a look. So what the guidance is stating is that if your statutory sick pay has ended, or you're in the last 3 months of your statutory sick pay, you can now move on to the new style employment and support allowance. Okay, that's brilliant. Thank you. Has that been helpful? Yeah, that's great. Yes. Thank you very much.
And just to say, you can ask for backdating. So if there is a gap between the statutory sick pay and the claim for employment and support allowance, you can ask for backdating.
Right, brilliant. Thank you. And can I apply for that all online? Yeah.
Yes, you can now apply for that online. Yeah.
Brilliant, because I'm in Shield, and you see, because of my illness. So
we've left a link in the so you can find the links for the new employment and support allowance, and you can actually apply online. There's an actual an apply now button when you go through onto that.
Brilliant, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thanks, Tracy. Teresa. Hi, Teresa. Teresa Rose.
Am I on?
Yeah, you're live.
Oh, okay. Sorry. It's all right, I'm not used to this. Hello, sorry. It's going back to tax credits, working tax credits. So they'd still be considered as working for 8 weeks. What happens after that 8 weeks?
Shall I take this, Richard?
Yeah, I will just say that as far as I'm aware, the guidance is that after the 8 weeks, they're asking that you have to get in contact with working tax credits to find out what their new guidance is. So the guidance at the moment is that it's going to be continuing for the next 8 weeks in this period, but that could change. Do you want to add anything to that, Faye?
Yeah, no, it's just basically that's what I was going to say. So they've only said for the next 8 weeks. So from from the beginning of the coronavirus outbreak. So we're just waiting to see what the government says is going to happen after the 8 weeks. But they haven't. I think they were meant to publish some more guidance recently, but they haven't yet.
Yeah.
Right, so it's 8 weeks from when we went on lockdown.
I believe it's from the 31st of March. I believe the 31st of March, the beginning of April.
Right, so we need to wait for government guidance on what's going to happen.
Keep in contact with Working Tax Credits Department, and to keep. You can contact us as well at the Disability Law Service. We will be trying to maintain any new guidance on this, but at the moment it's 8 weeks.
Yeah, and if you look on Ask CPAG, they've got a fact sheet on tax credits and coronavirus, which they will keep updating hopefully as well.
Yeah.
Right, that's cool. Yeah, because obviously as an advisor, I've already had one person ask me this question, so I knew about the 8 weeks, but then it was a case of, well, what's happening after the 8 weeks? So, right, okay, thank you.
All right, thanks, Teresa.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Shirley.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi, Shirley. Yes.
Hi, Shirley.
Hi. Okay. I don't know if it's a bit far-fetched, but we were supposed to. We're on the old benefit system. I came from my mum, okay, and we're supposed to migrate onto universal credit, but I don't know if it's delayed. Not that we want to go on it, but we can be okay as we are. But I'm a bit sort of like concerned where this is going to happen, or there's just going to be a whole delay, or do I just sit down and hold on tight and just wait for them to just let me know because of everything that's going on?
So have you received a letter identifying you from managed migration?
Yes.
Yeah, you have. Okay. Do you want to go ahead with that, Bez, because you have the expertise on that?
Sure. I mean, everyone is going to be moved on to universal credit by 2024, or at least that is the government plan, and people will be contacted if if and when they're going to be moved on to universal credit before that. So it will just depend on what the letter said. If it tells you to do anything, then make sure that you do that. Does the letter tell you to do anything, or does it just tell you that at some point there will be a change?
Yes, because I thought that was going to happen sort of like early this year, but maybe I took that wrong, because it's only certain, it's not all of our benefits that's going to go on there, so it's a bit up in the air. I wanted to know if all our benefits are going to go in there, because there's some that's not means tested, if I'm correct. So
yes, it's only means tested ones that will be replaced by universal credit normally.
Right, and then the rest will stay normal.
Yeah, so what benefits are you getting?
All in all, it will be pension credit, state pension, parental allowance. There's all a mixture, and housing benefit. Okay,
and are there any other adults in your household?
Yes, my mum.
Okay, and so this is for your mum. I mean, if your mum and any partner she has are over pension age, then they shouldn't be changed over to universal credit, because universal credit is a working age benefit. But if one of you is over pension age and one of you is under pension age, then you might be moved over to universal credit.
One more question. As you just said that, because me and my mother's joint tenants and we both receive housing benefits, would just part of my one be, it's kind of crazy, my part would be transferred to universal credit then?
So we'd have to wait and see at the time, right. But usually you don't have to, until 2024, people don't normally have to claim universal credit unless there's been a change that means they need to claim a new benefit, a new means tested benefit. But it's possible that you will be moved over onto universal credit by 2024 if you're getting housing benefit at the moment.
Right, okay. All right, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shirley. Are you okay to take a few more verbal ones and then I'll go back to the question panel?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so I'm coming up to Mo. Hi, Mo.
Hello, hiya.
Hey, Mo.
Hiya.
It's just a quick question. It's going off track a little bit, I'm afraid, but we've got a back payment for housing benefit of like 2,600. Is there any way that you can advise us on this? Because we're trying to speak to 1 or 2 people at the moment, but they've got quite a lot of staff that are kind of not working and stuff. So we've had this back pay, overpay all of a sudden going back to 2016. And obviously we're on kind of carers allowance and stuff, and it's not something that we can pay straight away, sort of thing, you know.
So is it an overpayment?
Yeah.
They're saying it's an overpayment on the housing benefit, yeah. But we've always supplied them stuff, and every year they sent us that information. I'm just wondering, is there anything that I can do on my side to say that the council have received information but not taken action to it, and now 4 years later, whatever it is, they are taking action towards it, you know, so it's kind of penalising us that way.
Do you want me to take this one, Bez?
I don't mind it. Do you want to? It's up to you if you want to take it.
Sure.
Or?
So, yeah, can I just is this in regards to they're saying that you've had an overpayment, or they've given you and they've paid you back money that they owed you?
They've actually saying on the notice that we've been overpaid on the housing benefit.
Okay, right, okay. Yeah, so if you want to dispute this, okay, you can ask for a revision. And if have they calculated how much they would like you to pay back in your housing benefit?
They've actually started taking deductions already, yeah.
Right, so if you request a revision, so you can, if you get in contact with the department in the best way that you can, possibly by telephone, possibly in writing would be a good way to do. As soon as you ask for a revision, the overpayment should stop until this has been resolved. Okay, but you would need to find out what you need to sufficiently rebut this by looking at asking them to revise this, to have a look at the revision of your housing benefit account, you can actually understand why it is that you've had this overpayment generated. And then if you're still not satisfied with that, then you can move on to tribunal stage. But at this stage, you can ask for a revision, and while this revision is being undertaken, your overpayment clawback will cease until such time that it's been resolved.
And just to add to that, so you can, if the decision is wrong, so if they've made a mistake, then you can do the revision appeal process. If it's correct that there's an overpayment, but you didn't do anything wrong, you told them about all changes within a month, and you've got proof of that, then you could ask them not to recover the overpayment because it was an overpayment due to official error. And you can also, if you're suffering from hardship because of the deduction of the overpayment, you can write to them and explain that to them and see if they can reduce the level of the deduction as well as a result of any hardship to you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think I've actually written to the council after quite a long session with a local charity who have got these numbers in their scheme now. And what's happened is people have been telling me to read page 3, page 2, page 1, which is in very small writing, and I've got macular degeneration at the moment, and I'm struggling with my eyes, and hence why I got this charity on board. So I've had to kind of use magnifying glasses. My wife and my carer that's coming in to look after my son to kind of help us out with everything. And the council are still saying that you've replied late and we can't kind of revise this or anything. So is it just a case of just going back to the council and saying what I've said basically, so I just keep finding myself hitting a brick wall all the time here because of the coronavirus, with unfortunately staff being off, etc.
Sure, it might be worth contacting your local citizens advice in case they can write anything on your behalf.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Mo.
Thank you very much, Mo. Thank you.
Okay, Melanie. Hi, Melanie.
Hi. Hi, I'm Mel, and My question is about people that are stuck abroad who are in receipt of legacy benefits, where they can only have the legacy benefits for 4 weeks, but obviously because they can't come back, the legislation hasn't really changed. What's your feel on the matter?
Yeah, that's a difficult one actually. I don't know of any guidance on that particular issue. The rules are technically for each benefit. They fluctuate between benefits, but generally in regards to housing benefit and income-related benefits, it will be around about 4 weeks.
Yes, housing benefit and pension credits are 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And then anything over 4 weeks, that's it.
Right.
It's an overpayment.
Are you stating that the person we're talking about is actually stranded abroad, and it's not actually their fault that they can't get back in time?
Yes.
Otherwise, they would have been able to do so. So, where is it that they've gone abroad?
In Australia.
To Australia. Okay. So I haven't got the information in front of me, but what you can show is when they come back is that they had a return ticket, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and that return ticket would show that they would have been back in time for the 4 weeks.
Yeah, so my school of thought is because the Secretary of State, it recovers any overpayment on a discretionary ground.
Yes.
It would be arguable not to recover, even though the Department of Works and Pensions would raise an overpayment. My thought was to ask them to use their discretion not to recover because of exceptional circumstance.
Yeah, so it would be helpful to begin this process as soon as possible, maybe on their behalf, or with help with them to get in contact with the relevant departments to let them know this is the situation you're having, and to get some advice moving forward. But if it does come to the case where they want to action an overpayment for this, then you would be able to use this. So the actual proof that you were returning and coming back, so it was that would show that it's a temporary absence, and so you could show that this ticket that took them to Australia was actually a return date that would have brought them into the actual time frame, but you've actually gone over because of circumstances that are out of their control, and you would be able to then argue that by a revision for housing benefit or a mandatory reconsideration.
Would it be a mandatory reconsideration, or would it be a supersession?
Did you say there were other benefits involved?
It's a housing benefit and pension credits. So my thought would be that because the decision would be correct, the overpayment decision under Social Security legislation would be a correct one. The overpayment would be raised, but technically, because you couldn't request a mandatory reconsideration and have that overturned on using legislation. That's the issue.
It would be, because at the revision stage, this would be it would be due to a decision maker, for instance, with the housing benefit department. And so you could say to them, with the information, you could say that, here is the information to prove that I would have been back in time if it was not for circumstances out of my control, which is the COVID crisis. And you could then ask them to use their discretion and say, that they shouldn't really be actioning this overpayment because actually they would have been back in time. Well,
it's not. Is it that I'm not arguing that there is an overpayment, because there will be an overpayment, because obviously legislation states quite clearly that an overpayment will be raised. But what's your thought on, just saying that using the Secretary of State's discretion not to recover the overpayment?
It's always worth doing that, but not enough people do that. So
I mean, I have done it. I have done it in exceptional circumstances in the past with other cases that I've had. But this seems to be quite extraordinary circumstances times that we're in.
Yeah, and you can also ask the clients to write to their MP about it potentially, because it might be something that we could put pressure on the government about to see if they'll change anything. So I'd say definitely.
I think you do have a strong case.
Yes.
Because
I mean,
you
I think
do
any
have
time that the secretary doesn't really recover any overpayments when the claimant dies.
the reason for this legislation is because it's to do with a temporary absence. So you're showing that you're going to be temporarily absent, and you do have a settled status. And the longer that goes on, the harder it is to show that you didn't have a temporary absence. But the fact that the person that we're talking about actually has a return ticket to come back, that would be evidence to show that this was...
I mean, you can have temporary absence up to 12 months, can't you? If it's like
Sure.
sickness.
Yeah, that's generally, if you go past the 52 weeks, then you would then have to meet the past present test and
yes, you would. Yes,
that's and they aggregate that as well. They aggregate that over a 52-week period. So if you've left the
Thanks, Melanie. Can I stop you there? Because I know that there's a lot of people who are still coming through the questions.
Thank you.
Right?
Thank you.
Thanks, Melanie.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm coming to Jane. Hi, Jane.
Hi, morning, everyone.
Morning, Jane.
Morning, hiya. I'm just wondering, I'm trying to assist a lot of clients who are finding themselves street homeless now, because before COVID there was sofa surfing and on people's cities, etc. But now they're not, because they can't stay there, and also the jobs have finished. So they're talking to me about claiming universal credit, and they said that they've been told that they can't because they've got no fixed abode, and I said I'm sure that's not right. Is that, you can still claim for universal credit, can't you, without a fixed abode?
As far as I know, it's probably good them to contact Help to Claim, which is the telephone service for citizens' advice who've been funded by the government to help people get a claim and process, because they'll be the best people to advise on how to go about that if you don't have a fixed address. But also local councils are meant to be, it's called Help to Claim, so I'll just get the number up for you. But also, I mean, the government has funded councils, so they are meant to be housing anyone who is street homeless. So they should get in contact with their council immediately.
In reality,
yeah, of course. I'm just finding the number. So yes, yeah, Help to Claim universal credit.
These people, they've all got bank accounts because they have been working in the past, and they can't claim any benefit because they've been working in sofa surfing, but now they find themselves destitute and street homeless as well because of COVID.
Yeah. So the Help to Claim number is 0800 144 8444 for England. Is it just England that you need it for?
Oh yeah, just England. Yeah. So 0800 144 8444. Brilliant. Yeah. That's fantastic. Could I quickly ask one more? It's just on a client who's applied for PIP on the 23rd of March. Is the assessments are they all just sort of postponed, or are they still dealing with them on a paper application? Like, will she get determination on a PIP claim?
My understanding is that they are doing some telephone assessments for people or paper assessment. But for universal credit, they are delaying the work capability assessment until after coronavirus. So it's possible they will delay some PIP ones, but they are able to do phone assessments and paper-based assessments.
And so if they do that, then they'll be able to make a payment to the person.
Yeah, and I guess if money is urgent, then they could always write to explain that and just say that they would really appreciate an assessment as soon as possible.
Yeah, no, that's lovely. Thank you. Thanks for your help.
No problem. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye. So there's a few on the question panel. One was a person with a learning disability was on ESA. They applied for universal credit when he'd heard about the upfront loan, but didn't really understand that it would replace ESA. Can he go back to ESA?
Simple answer is probably, is no. It's really difficult to go back from universal credit once you've claimed it, unfortunately. Basically, yeah.
If they have a severe disability premium in place, it might be possible. But as our understanding is that once you apply for universal credit, you would need to move over to universal credit from that point.
There are a few more questions in the question box. How do you want to do this, Richard and Bess? Do you want me to just send them to you, or do you want to go on for another 5 minutes and see if we can just cover these last few?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't mind saying 5 minutes. Yeah.
So there's one that's saying, regarding the arrangements for requesting the appeals tribunal be expedited on the grounds of financial hardship, what about the preceding mandatory reconsiderations?
So mandatory reconsideration should still be going ahead as usual. And you know, they don't require a court hearing. Yet there are usually quite long waiting times for mandatory reconsideration. So again, if you call them and tell them that you'd really like a decision soon, then that may help. But there's no guarantees that it will help.
Right, and then there's another one that says not directly COVID related, but oh no, that's whether or not we could do a webinar on post-16 benefits, so we can discuss that afterwards. If a carer is shielded and cannot care for 12 weeks, can they continue to receive carer's allowance?
Yes.
A person can do caring by phone, but not 35 hours a week.
Oh, I think that's tricky, isn't it? Because it depends on the interpretation of affected by coronavirus. I think it's mainly intended for people who've got it or who have had to self-isolate because they've come into contact with someone who's got it. So it's the sort of thing where the government might change their mind further down the line because they didn't make it clear with ESA or statutory sick pay that people who were shielding could get that, but they have now made that clear.
I wouldn't expect. So the eligibility is 35 hours, but they are saying that that those who are affected by COVID and having to isolate in the various different ways that will affect them, they will meet the eligibility for that. And they're also, raising that by saying that you can have that if you are having to give emotional support by telephone or online. I don't see that if you are having that wrestling with you're going to not be able to meet that 35 hours, I can't see you being able to be penalised for that at this moment in time, because that would be really arbitrary towards you. I think that if that is your case and you're in that predicament, then I think that you will still be eligible for carer's allowance.
Thank you. There's another one. If my income-based job seekers allowance is ending, what benefits should I be applying for?
Sorry, could you repeat that again, please, Julie?
If my income-based job seekers allowance is ending, what benefits should I apply for?
So it depends.
And then it says NSJSA.
Say that again.
And then at the end it says NSJSA question mark.
New style job seekers allowance. Yes, that isn't income based, that's contribution based. So I was going to say income based job seekers allowance wouldn't normally just end unless there'd been a change. So it would normally be universal credit if you meet the criteria. So you've got savings under 16,000. You don't have a partner who's got income that makes it too high for you to get universal credit. And the only and the only time you wouldn't be claiming universal credit is if you meet the criteria, is if you're getting another benefit which has a severe disability premium in it. So if they're getting housing benefit which has a severe disability premium in it, because for example they live on their own and they're getting personal independence payment daily living rate, then they could claim a legacy benefit such as income-based job seekers allowance or employment and support allowance. But otherwise it is universal credit if they're entitled.
Yeah, I would just add that go online and have a look at the benefits calculators and find out what would be available to you in your situation.
Thank you, and I'll just do this last one now. I have a person who lives alone and claims universal credit, including housing cost. She is a carer for a father who lives nearby. While he is shielded as he's 80, she is living with him. in order to minimise the risk of bringing the virus into his house. If she ends up living with him for over 13 weeks, will she lose her universal credit housing element, or is there some kind of exception that can protect her?
There is a discretion in universal credit housing element if you're temporarily living in between two homes because you're providing care. So they could exercise that, you know, to allow the housing element to continue to be paid potentially. But yeah, I can't sort of guarantee it.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. You've been fantastic, and I hope everybody that's attended has found it useful. The webinar has been recorded, as I said right at the beginning, so that will be live online for people to go back and watch, and all the details and the contact links that Richard and Bex will also put them on a separate document on that site as well. So thank you so much, Bex and Richard, for doing this. It's been very much appreciated.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
And thank you everybody for attending. We'll let you know when there's more and up and coming webinars, and I've been taking notes as well about what people want from the webinar. So any further suggestions, please get in touch with us and we'll try and do as many as we can that is helpful. Thanks. Have a lovely day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.